when you're in a space in which you're taking risk, it's a space in which you learn a lot.
Good morning, folks. We are here at a very dreary Kendal Mountain Film Festival. I'm Laura MacCallum, and this is the legendary alpinist, activist, Graham Zimmerman. Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm great.
Tell us about what you're doing at the festival.
Well, I am here presenting a book that I've just written called A Fine Line, which captures my last 15 years of alpine climbing, and it talks a lot about climbing, but it's just as much about my work in advocacy and to be honest, my marriage, because it's like I've balanced my career in climbing against that work and advocacy and against my relationship with Shannon.
I guess like that vulnerability and risk, and not only yourself but in your environment and in your marriage. It's a really cool way to kind of tie those things together.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's worth sharing that when I was a young climber, when I was in my early 20s, I was, told by the generation in the United States before me that I needed to give up everything in order to be the climber that I wanted to be. It was this very Nietzschean Ubermensch kind of thing.
Yeah.
And as an early 20-year-old, I loved that. I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. And it turns out that it's actually really lonely, and and you take on a lot of risk and a lot of unnecessary risk. At least that's what I was doing. And so it's about kind of discovering through some mentorship, through some accidents, through a lot of introspection that by balancing all these things, I think you can actually make them all better. It's not like a compromise. It's actually they can all build together. Yeah. It's like by going to the mountains, I can go and kind of collect these stories that we can utilize for climate advocacy by being home and having this time at home where I can train and be focused and and spend time with Shannon. That it means that I'm more prepared when I go to the mountains, and going to Washington D.C. in the States and doing all this advocacy work provides all this purpose to climbing, which is really lovely. And it's in the end, I think made me a better climber, which is not really what I anticipated, but it's really fun to be able to share.
You're my fellow colleague at Protector Winters.
Yeah.
And you talked about more purposeful time in the mountain. Do you think your advocacy really drove that in terms of knowing the criticalness of what's at stake, not just in terms of the actual risk of climbing, but I guess wider in terms of the health of our planet and our communities?
It does feel like there's an option in my life where I stop climbing and I could just work on advocacy work all the time. And and I think about that sometimes. But to be totally honest, the mountains are a place that brings so much to my life in terms of time for introspection, stories that we can leverage in the world around us, and just time in those environments to really understand who I am and what I want to do. And people ask me about risk all the time.
Yeah.
It's just which is fair. Mountain climbing is pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
But I think that when you're in a space in which you're taking risk, when you're in a space in which you're kind of engaging with the edge of something, it's a space in which you learn a lot. It's a space in which you learn a lot about yourself and what you're capable of, and being able to go do that consistently in the mountains and then bring those lessons back to this work and have my work in advocacy really well grounded in that is something that feels really powerful. And it's something that I'll find myself kind of needing to go to the mountains and needing to kind of go get that energy, get some of that learning, and then I'll come back and I'll just be so much more ready to take on more of this work in the climate space, which feels good. And so mountains for me and my relationship with Shannon and all that are all part of that, right? That's part of that balance, part of that sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, if we can't sustain ourselves, then we can't sustain. It has to grow from there, I think.
And check this out. So we're here at Kendal. Yeah. We're here at a place surrounded by folks who are invested in the outdoors. And the urgency of this work is something that is crucial. And there's this thing that everybody here at Kendal has, which are stories about these spaces, these outdoor spaces that we love.
Yeah.
And how they're being impacted by climate. And those are this really powerful tool that we have that we can utilize to advocate for climate action.
Totally.
And in our community of folks who have these stories that can be utilized to drive common ground, and also a group of folks who to be quite frank, are like a very courageous group of people.
Yeah.
Like we do hard because we like it. We don't like stay at home and sit on the couch. We go and like
Yeah.
we go out in the rain and like get after it. We go ride bikes for long ways. We go up on
Yeah.
these mountains, and like the more that we can do to empower this community to use those stories and use the fact that we love taking on really hard things in order to like take on this climate crisis.
Yeah.
We are the people to do it.
I was in the pub, and this was years ago, but I heard this old boy say, you know, if mountaineers can't save the mountains, then God help us all. You know, what we've been talking about is what I call like big ticket items, you know, like which take a lot of energy. How is the relationship with your wife, Shannon? Like, does she help you through these difficult times? Like,
I have found that the best way to get hard things done is to build really strong teams.
yeah.
And that's been true in my life in climbing, going to the mountains. If you look at my career in the mountains, there's not much soloing. There's not much just me time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like going to the mountains with teams that are like strategically built in order to do hard things.
Yeah.
And that same thing goes with my marriage with Shannon. It's like we are a team taking on the work that we do together. And so absolutely she not only supports me, but also you know, keeps me in check at times.
Yeah.
Like if I kind of get out in front of my skis, she'll, you know, she's really willing to say, hey, listen, I think you need to back off. I think you're kind of overcommitted right now.
Yeah.
And the same goes the other way as well. I mean, Shannon's a 2-time world champion ultimate frisbee player now, like redefining what it means to be a woman in corporate America and the technology space in like leadership roles, and
Sick.
and it's I think it's real cool. I think she's great. I think she's better.
We
than me.
married her, so
I mean, yeah, like I definitely married up. Let's be clear. And so you know, and there are a lot of challenges with that. And so she's taking that on. And so we spend a lot of time being a team and like supporting each other through those things. And sometimes that's, you know, things are great and oh my gosh, we're having fun. And sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. You know, we're just there for each other through all that.
Yeah.
And sometimes to say, you're kicking ass, like go harder. And sometimes to say, hey, I think you need to back off. I think you need to take a deep breath here. And it's crucial.
I guess just to wrap up, I've heard you've been given a very fancy title, Kendal Mountain Festival patron.
I am delighted and surprised and honored about being asked to be a patron of the Kendal Mountain Festival. To be honest, I'm a little bit speechless about the whole deal. It's like this is a festival that means a lot to me. For me, in climbing, the British tradition around in climbing is a really big deal.
Yeah.
And when I think about my biggest heroes in the climbing space, they're all over on the side of the pond.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
And to be able to spend time over here engaging with this community, to be able to come over here and celebrate these things we love, it's an honor just to be here. And to hear that the folks that are running Kendal, you know, feel that we're in alignment and we can move forward together on that is a really big deal. It's also a hell of a list. It's the other two patrons are Sir Chris Bonington and Leo Holding.
Wow.
It's like, yeah, like it's quite
That's a guest list.
Oh my god. Yeah. So yeah.
Red carpet out. Come on.
Christmas. Yeah. Like hanging out with a couple of like real heroes of mine. So yeah, I'm honored and delighted, and it's really cool, and it probably also means I get to come hang out at the festival more, which is really great also. So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, folks, I told you he was good. Mr. Graham Zimmerman. Check out his book. Check him out at the festival. Stop and say hi. He's worth chatting to.